Hello, everyone. Welcome to a very special webinar. We're going to talk about payroll. Here we go. Hey everyone, my name is Chris Fletcher. I'm the founder and CEO of Tech on Toast. And today, as you can see down the bottom of here, we're talking about simplifying payroll. Payroll, for some reason or other, over my career has been mystifying, and it's done by people in secret corners, and no one knows what's going on, and generally it all ends in tears. So today we're bringing you two legends of the industry to talk to us about how we can simplify it and how these guys are working together to help really bring payroll, make payroll invisible almost. Wouldn't that be great? So first of all, I'm welcoming Rod Schneider, CEO from Workforce. Rod, how are you?
Yeah, really well, Chris. Thanks for having me on.
You are most welcome, my friend. Good to see you're fully branded there.
Absolutely, as always, right down to the mug.
I need to take some lessons from you. And also joining us today is Tom Stanley, Managing Director at Williams Stanley & Co. Are you also co-founder? Are you?
Yeah, co-founder and MD of Williams Stanley Co. And thank you very much for calling us legends. It's a wonderful introduction.
We'll stick with legend. Here's the legend, Tom Stanley. Tom, how are you?
I'm very well, and changing my job title now, it seems, as well. So,
yeah. Well, I actually, most people on LinkedIn, don't they call themselves legends or something now, or some kind of, there's some weird description underneath their name. But anyway, welcome both. I know it's a busy week for you both, so we'll be as rapid as we can. Before we start, Rod, do you want to tell us a bit about Workforce and just understand what you guys do?
Yeah, absolutely, Chris. At Workforce, our goal is to eliminate employment friction for shift and hourly workers. And that's a really big thing that we've found in the hospitality industry across the UK. So our goal is to simplify every element of employment and staff management so that owners and managers can spend more time on the front lines dealing with their customers and generating revenue, and less time with the paperwork of rosters and rotas, schedules, and leave management. All of that's really boring stuff that gets in the way of making money.
It's not boring. And in Australia, you have a different name, right? Just say it for me, because I love it.
Tanda.
Tanda. So Tanda is is where it was all started. In Melbourne, is that right?
In Brisbane.
Brisbane, sorry. Yeah. Oh,
that's
same
right.
Same thing, isn't it? No?
Yeah, right, exactly.
And Tom, tell us a little about Williams and Stanley. I've only got to know you guys, Williams Stanley, sorry. I've only got to know you guys, I suppose, in the last 12 months, but since I've met you, I've had great fun. So tell us what you guys do and who you serve.
Being called a fun accountant is clearly a badge to wear with pride.
Legend and fun.
Exactly, in the same breath. We're a hospitality-only accountancy firm. We deal with a large number of restaurants, bars, hotels, and all creeds and colours from the hospitality industry. We provide full outsource solutions, which includes managing payroll with the wonderful people at Workforce and some other partners. And the idea is we provide a seamless end-to-end solution with experts behind the systems.
Thank you very much. Seamless. And we may as well start with the negative, guys, because we always have to. That's how these webinars go, right? So the challenges, I suppose, of payroll kind of being run by, whether it's been run by people on site or whether it's been run by a third party. What are some of the challenges, start with you, Rod, that people are facing when it comes to there's traditional payroll systems versus what we might talk about today?
Yeah, absolutely. I think at a very high level, there's a fear of payroll and a fear of errors, and it results in people not understanding and happy to just pay almost any price at sometimes to not have that problem. So there's a real lack of transparency, and it comes from I think a fear of people making errors in the payroll process and what happens there. So whether it's around people's leave, or it could be really simple things, Chris, like an employee questioning their payslip. And if you're not transparent about it, if they thought that they were meant to get paid 8 hours and they actually only work 7.5, but they just forgot, just them not knowing or not remembering, not being able to see, oh, hang on, I only did work 7.5 hours that week. It turns into a conflict and a friction that is unnecessary, doesn't need to be there. So what we're trying to do is make this all as transparent as possible for the employee to really reduce those questions, and also to help give as much visibility to the employer so they know exactly what's going on in their business. So yeah, from a high level, that's what we think is one of the big contributing problems to the fear and the the fear around payroll in the industry.
Yeah, I think fear is the right word. And same for you, Tom. I'm guessing because you work with multiple different restaurant brands, bars, wherever it might be. When they end up in front of you for the first time and you meet them, I suppose you do some kind of discovery process with your team. Is it the same kind of things you're seeing?
Yeah, 100%. So I think the problems that we see are again around pay. You know, payroll's a very emotive subject, and people's pay is obviously very and rightly so very important. So making sure that's right first time means that you're not going to have the tension or the issues where it is a mistake, or that people, exactly as Rod said, thought they'd worked an 8-hour day, but actually it was only 7.5 because they'd chosen to clock off early, or there was another reason for not working what they remember. So the more transparent, seamless you can make that, the better. Things like having online portals to be able to access historical pay slips, getting P60s distributed correctly, they're all vital. I mean that any issues can be easily circumvented and or dealt with. And I also think because it's such an emotive subject, that's why people tend to outsource or stay away from payroll. Really, labour management and workforce management and the tools for that should then help you run your business better, be more efficient on labour costs, and ultimately have a happier team.
Yeah, and I think this when I worked in ops for a long time, there was always a lady or a man who was in charge of payroll who wasn't actually in, kind of almost in their own little department on their own. This poor person with a load of spreadsheets who was responsible for delivering everybody's payroll absolutely accurately, maternity, holiday pay, national insurance, all the tax stuff, or without any problems. Obviously, that never happened, and it was a really. I actually felt there's a lady called Patricia. I'm going to call everyone Patricia who does this role now, but like everyone's got a Pat, right, who does this role, and I think it's. I don't know if it's changing or if it's getting better, but Rod, you guys are not replacing that people, but you're really enabling them, right, to do I suppose a more seamless job with your technology and what you can do to help.
Yeah, absolutely. And we find we're trying to make that simpler and cut that down so that those people can do more effective people-facing tasks. And if I think of one of our more successful clients in onboarding the software, they've got 3 or 4 different sites around London, and they found that one of the biggest time savings was actually in the questions that come to them from staff about things that they weren't sure of. And so they were getting 30 questions a month, and it dropped down to 1 or 2 because of that transparency. Now, as we talk to payroll officers, again, whether they're internal staff or external staff, the number one complaint we get is about when people are coming to us and they're in the prospect phase, is about how many hours, and depending on the size, how many days it takes to prepare a pay run. And if we give them the right tools, it just shouldn't be like that. And those Patricias have other more important things to do. Or in some of the larger clients, they don't just have Patricia, they've got a team of Patricias that are working around the clock. And it's not an effective use of time, and it's also not it's not generating more for the business by having people check timesheets, calculate leave, run multiple spreadsheets, as you pointed out. So yeah, trying to alleviate that time pain and reduce the amount of queries that come through is a big part of it.
And Tom, you guys, how long does a payroll take, or is that how long is a piece of string? Does it depend on the company and depend on the, how does it work internally for you guys?
Yeah, I mean, it unfortunately is how long is a piece of string. If if we're in a well-oiled machine and it's all tied together nicely, let's say all the rotors are already signed off through Workforce, everything's been kept up on a day-to-day basis, all the new starter information is incorrect.
You say like this doesn't happen.
No, why would you possibly think that? You can then run them very quickly, and especially with a tool like Workforce, it's pretty seamless to export those into either into the Workforce payroll solution or into a bureau solution like BrightPay. So you can then equally have them where we've got one where it takes 4 days for them to be processed because there's a number of issues that happen. The information's not loaded in. We're all humans, right? And humans putting data into machines means there's quite a lot of errors, garbage in, garbage out. So that's really where this can be time consuming. And for the rarefied client who's still using spreadsheets for their rotors and still using spreadsheets for new starters, that can then cause compliance issues and can just really convolute and make what should be quite a simple process very, very elongated and potentially problematic.
And
then
how
the
do you
law's getting more complicated as well. So sorry, the law's getting more complicated as well. 52 rolling week holiday averages, which is something that came in quite a while ago, but you still see that people haven't fully embraced and are there's a lot of accidental uncompliance or lack of accidental kind of breaches that you now have the potential of tribunals, and the Trump legislation's changed. So the more unification you can get in that, the more you can get in one software, like Workforce, the better that is for everybody, and means that the people in your payroll team can actually be helping, either with employee welfare elsewhere or in reducing your payroll costs and therefore running a more profitable business.
And I think that's my understanding of it, Rod, right? That a lot of the inquiries we get at Tech on Toast when people are looking to change, someone literally rang me yesterday, an ops director rang me yesterday, said, I'm on a particular scheduling platform. It doesn't calculate this very specific thing. I think it was the fact that a manager was not going to be in that site for the week, and they wanted to move their costs to another site, and they just wouldn't let them do it. They couldn't get it done on their current. I'll tell you who they are later. It wouldn't let them do it on their current.
Have you referred them to us both?
Yeah, I'll do it. I'll do it in about 18 minutes. But yeah, so and they that literally was a trigger to leave. Her words were, "I'm going to find something else because we can't do this every month anymore." And it's really interesting. It's actually that granular detail, isn't it, that people end up on when they end up making a decision to change or do something different. And I'm guessing you're going to tell me, don't worry, we can help with that.
Well, I think the important thing there is like having an expert like Tom and the William Stanley team on hand, because sometimes there are processes in businesses that people have been doing forever and a day, and they're nervous to change because it's around payroll and because it is sensitive and it's been happening like this, but they might be causing all sorts of other headaches down the track. So listening to Tom speak just before, I was thinking, it's really great to have them on board when people come to us with queries. Now we can make, we see a lot of people processing pay, and we've got a really good idea of what best practice is and what it isn't. But at the end of the day, we're a software company, not an accountant like Tom, and people are going to trust that external advisor. So it's really important to have advisors who understand the industry and can see these processes and make recommendations and give them comfort that it's okay to change. You don't have to keep doing this 8-step process. The world has moved on from there, and given that comfort to make a business or an operational decision that makes everyone's life easier. And I think that's really important.
Yeah, I think Rod, you hit on a really important thing there, is the fear of change. And I think a lot of people don't want to change these processes. It's going to be a massive upheaval. And listen, we're not perfect. Humans involved will always make errors, but by having an expert to be able to carry it through and support and understand it, then you're going to, those errors are going to be significantly reduced, and that's going to be a headache with the expertise that's managed by others. Because that's the benefit of outsourcing, right? Is it's managed by others, and those things where humans are involved will need to be mitigated, will need to be worked through, and so having that managed by someone else is always going to be a benefit. Plus, with a best-in-class solution like Workforce, it's seamless, right?
Yeah, and I was sitting at one of your dinners, Tom. You're very nice. He takes us to dinner occasionally. And I was sat well, actually, me and Rod were both there, but Rod, you didn't speak to me. You were on the other table.
It's very rude, yeah.
I respect it. That's fine.
To be fair, I was late. But it was I was talking to, I won't name it, a customer of yours, and the word he used was comfort. He said almost like it's like a blanket. He said, but just having that expertise in my back pocket type thing. Where a lot of people are fearful of it. Change is not just in payroll either, right? Any kind of change, menu changed, people change, technology change, whatever it is, it's a real challenge for the industry because of the high churn, right? There's so many people coming and going out the business that they find change expensive and time consuming, and thinking, well, what's the point? They're all going to leave at some point. So it's about really finding a way around that. And I think having that expertise in your back pocket, or having a piece of tech that can really support that, is now crucial. I think that the days of discussing it are kind of down the road. I think it's really now about finding out, who these great people are, how do we do it, which is why we're doing this. And if someone's looking to make those next steps, so just your advice, you two here, so that we've talked about it a little bit already, but when they're at that point, when they're like, right, I want to make a change, I want to kind of move on to a combined solution like this, where I can have my payroll managed for me, outsource it. What are the, how do they find the right solution without pushing workforce and Williams and Stanley down their throat? What's the best way to go about that change?
Well, just even before people get to that situation, just because I would say that if you're not hearing about it, or if you haven't reviewed the situation, or if you're not across the details, just the first step is to ask them questions of, I'll put Tom under the pump here, of wherever your bureau accountant, your payroll outsourcer is, because one of the things that I've noticed, Chris, is that if people aren't hearing about it, they're happy to let it sit. And so often these processes can sit for 6, 7, 8 years, a long time, however long that person is in the role. Sometimes it takes them to go on holidays for a decent period of time for things to be uncovered that aren't happening properly. And technology has improved a lot in that period. And we see people paying a lot to outsourcing because they are so scared of it. I would say the first step is to make sure you know that process. What are you paying for? We see lots of people paying for data entry. We commonly get told, oh, it's okay, we just email so-and-so a spreadsheet. Well, there's lots of red flags just in that statement alone, right? We don't want people every time you move the data, and if you're moving it out to an email and across, that's not the best process. We'd much rather have it a situation where William Stanley can go directly in to your account and directly see these sorts of things, right? So my first step would be for anyone who, even before you get fed up, know what you're paying for, understand what you're actually paying for on that payroll side, because people are paying a lot for each pay slip, and often they're paying.
What is a lot, Rod? Just out of interest, I have no idea, but what kind of range are you looking at, or can we not do that?
Well, we can. I mean, I know. Look, actually, I don't want to put Tom in it, because there's other elements that people charge. People pay for lots, right? People pay for. Not every comparison is the same. Some people pay for advice. Some people pay for a whole heap of submissions. Some people are just paying for the payroll. Some people are using the account.
I think that's what trying to understand that for an operator looking in, if they're saying, right, okay, I want to do this. We are at a point or a size where we need to kind of make sure this is being done properly every week or every month. And what kind of, how does the cost break down? Obviously, they pay for a SaaS fee to use a scheduling platform, and then they would pay. Tom, would they pay you? Is there a sliding scale?
No, we charge per payslip. I mean, we do.
Right.
There are, we do charge more per payslip if we're then doing some of the advisory and maybe the further support piece. But predominantly, it should be in the low pound figure for payslips. You shouldn't, and you shouldn't be paying for data entry or manual handling fees, I think, which is what Rod's kind of flagging. It should be a per payslip price that's reasonable. There are solutions that charge more than that, and there are people in our our competitors and peers who provide a kind of Rolls-Royce service, and for some people that's right, but that shouldn't be. I think Rod's point, not to put words in my mouth, that shouldn't be for manual handling and data entry. That should be for additional advice, maybe extra pension support, maybe extra financial mentoring for your team. They're where the interesting and the value add comes from. But somebody charging you 15, 20 quid to process a pay slip because you send out the spreadsheet is where you should be challenging it. And I would kind of take on from Rod's point of challenge your current provider, internal or external, to also know what good looks like. Know that you can get payroll done in a shorter period of time. Know that you need longer because you actually want to go through different verifications and you want to go through a different process. And also make sure that you're not on a 3-day back system, because there's still so much of the world that seems to be operating on a Wednesday night cutoff, when our kind of payment and banking solution is 24/7, 365 faster payments that now are very, very affordable. So there's a lot of ways that you can do that actually reduce the cost, improve the employee experience, and can then really help improve the bottom line for both the central support function, but also for the sites, because it all makes much more sense.
Such an important point there about the faster payments, because every little thing that you can do in this environment to keep your staff happy is important, right? It's really hard to find staff at the moment. We've been hearing about staff shortages for a long time, but in particular key staff and general managers, those really important people. So you you want to do everything you can to make the payment process, but also the ability for staff to pick up shifts, get paid more, and know their opportunities for earning. So yeah, if you're on slow payment processes, that's just another area where you're behind versus other employers in the market, and you might be putting that star general manager at risk.
And if I meet you two today in a pub and you corner me and say, "Come and work with us, we're great," which you would never do, I'm sure. How long does it take?
Be in a pub or corner you?
Both. I know they're both true. But how long would it take me? So I've got 5 sites, I run 5 restaurants, and I kind of want to get my payroll out of, help Patricia get my payroll into a system that's secure. I'm not sending emails or sharing data anywhere. How long does it take really to start that process? I know it probably does it go to you first, Rod, or Tom? Do you recommend the technology to a customer if they come to you? How does it work?
We recommend technology, and I would say if it's a full end-to-end solution, then we would be doing it simultaneously. So I mean, Rod would get it set up and get that. We'd at the same time be provisioning the back end, making sure the clearance, and doing a little audit to support on any potential compliance problems, and work with the team to flag those through, especially around trunk legislation, and making sure that since the trunk changes have happened, that everything's recorded and done properly. But the most kind of operationally key bit of data or key process is the change to a tool like Workforce. And we've got them up very quickly, haven't we, Rod? In some instances, you can be live in a couple of weeks, but if it's a big operation, then it takes a lot longer, and there's more data to get in and a lot of training.
That's a great point around compliance, isn't it, Rod? Because that like trunk changing recently, I think it was 1st of October. Yeah, 1st of October when it was. But yeah, just trunk changing and various other things. Obviously, the budget just came in recently, and that's going to kick in next year. All that stuff, staying on top of that, as well as just running your business. It's a lot, right? And I don't know how people do it genuinely. Like I don't have restaurants, but I feel like it's painful doing what I do. So God knows how people running restaurants and looking after teams that size cope. Is that quite a common ask for you, Rod, when people are kind of, I know you're not necessarily advising on that stuff, but when they're coming to work, do you see that cropping up a lot on desk?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's where we want to partner with that specialist advisor that can do that, and we know that we can handle that. I think you can move on to a system you can in one pay cycle, depending on how everything else is. But I think the really important thing is having the staff management side, having the change management side working along inside of that, and having really good advisors to, like, it's a good opportunity to check these processes, right? To go and say, like, are we happy with the way that we run Tronks? Are we confident in our leave calculations and our leave system? The 52-week leave averaging that Tom mentioned is a great example of that, and it's only going to keep changing. We've seen more changes come through with the leave roll up. So I think that you can do it very quickly, and I think that it's the best way to do it. But if you are making that change, why not reassess your processes at the same time?
Sure.
See what other efficiencies you can gain.
And I suppose one thing, because we talked about the challenge at the start, the key benefits then, you've mentioned a few of them there, but I'll go from Tom's side, the key benefits of working, just so we can list them off, of working on an integrated system between you guys. Tom, what are the key benefits from your side in terms of, I think we talked about compliance, obviously, there's probably more than that.
Yeah, the key benefits would be the seamless kind of integration of data. So nothing's there's no manual handling of downloading it, changing it from one spreadsheet, putting in another system, so that there won't be data loss, and your team can see it go through in real time. There is the compliance and the support and advice piece. That's definitely what we've been developing over the last few years to really improve our team's knowledge and support in difficult times and in good times. And then, it really is having it in the cloud, where you can look and see your rotas, and you can have proper financial control day in, day out over how your business is performing. And labor is now, because most of the clients I'm seeing, the biggest cost and the biggest implication to whether they're profitable or not.
Yeah, same for you, Rod. I think that scheduling is so weird, isn't it? It was 25 years writing rotas, basically, or writing schedules in my career for various different sized teams. And then when I wasn't writing them, I was signing them off for the managers who were writing them. And I think I still think that it's not been cracked, right? In terms of like from an operation level, it's very hard. It's very hard to be consistent on your scheduling, very hard to predict what's coming. And now, as Tom just mentioned, the pressure of labor cost is more than ever, right? It's really damaging. But that's why Australia, I presume, in tender, there's lots of QR codes, right? Because the cost of running labor over there, I think, is really expensive. Is that right?
Yeah, it's much higher. They've also got a very complex award system,
Right.
which results in, if you work this many hours, then you'll be a different rate, and if you work this many days, it'll be a different rate, and the rates stack and stack and stack.
Wow.
So I think it's more about that level of complexity and knowing that you can look at those rules and handle those rules and know exactly what that cost will be at the end. So when you are looking at that live, I think that's one of the main things is we've talked to, on that labor cost side of things, we've talked to general managers who have KPIs, but they don't get their reports until the end of the month or whatever that time is, and that's too late. You can't change it at that point. It's good to have reviews and reflect. So you want that transparency of how your costs are going against revenue at any time, and there's no reason why you can't access those figures live, look at that, and make decisions on the go. And that's really important. And if you're doing that, if you are on top of your labor, then that's got a flow-on effect to payroll, because the timesheet should be approved daily, right? If you're in an operation and you're right on top of things, then the timesheets are approved. If the timesheets are approved, when it comes to the end of your payroll period, it makes Tom's job a lot easier, and you're not stacking up unnecessary payroll costs from people who are going through tidying up the timesheets, doing manual entry. And yeah, I think Tom made my point much better than I was, but five quid at one is not the same as 5 quid at the other, right? If you're paying 5 quid for a lot of data entry, then I'd be very upset. If you're paying 5 quid, but it's for payroll processing and it's business advisory and it's preparation of financial statements, well, that's a very different spend, and you're probably getting a totally different value out of that.
Yeah, and that point you made about having live data, or at least 24-hour live data. We used to have a weekly flash, but we used to look at a P&L every week. So we'd look at our labor versus our sales and stay on top of it. But the problem is when we got our accounts at the end of the month, they never matched the weekly flash. So you would think you're at 25%, then you get your accounts and you were 32% because of all the different moving parts within a cost of a human, right? So NI,
Yep.
holiday, maternity, and it became a real challenge. And I still think a lot of people are there. I think a lot of people are still scratching their heads at the end of the month.
They are, and we work with a lot of our clients more on our kind of management accounting side than on the payroll side with that, and trying to then help them and improve the numbers over time. So you bridge the weekly to period end or monthly gap as quickly as you can and as accurate as you can. You've got to have a tool like Workforce that gives you those data, gives you those numbers, so that you've got the rounding in for NI, you've got the rounding in for pensions, and you can see it, because no spreadsheet in the world is going to be able to do that on a daily or a weekly basis. So it's vital to be able to forecast and really know what you're doing day in, day out.
And let me tie that back to a question you asked at the start, Chris, about Patricia and her, if she's taking 2 or 3 days, but the job she's doing is, can you approve this timesheet? Can you fill in this? Can you approve that leave? That's 3 days of sunk time that we shouldn't be spending. But if those 3 days as a payroll expert, she's spending talking about the things that Tom just did, where is our revenue spend, doing some financial reporting, helping the general managers, well, that's a really productive use of their time. And that should be the goal for people that are looking at running really efficient hospitality businesses and looking at getting the most out of their payroll and finance team.
I think that's the minimum, isn't it? If you're going to do any kind of change, you've got to redeploy that labor somewhere else to help the rest of the business, not just kind of, or just take it out as a cost, right? Just remove that cost because you don't need it anymore. I don't mean remove Patricia. That sounds terrible. Yeah. I mean, but just as you just said, take Patricia's time. It's like almost like the automate at the, when you're injecting orders now at a service point. Take away the stuff that people don't want to do and make it quicker for the customer and more efficient for the staff. So look, super interesting, guys. I think payroll is kind of like, I don't know why it's so secretive, or what. Maybe it's because of the cost, Rod. Maybe it's been hidden because it's so bloody expensive and people just don't want to touch it. But I think it's something we should talk about more in our world, in my world anyway, because I think it's a problem that people are facing. And just that call yesterday really kind of sparked me back into thinking about this stuff. And before we go and do our little final closing thing, do you want to add anything, Rod, before we head off?
Well, I just think, I think it's because of that fear of the error and what happens. And, people seem to be accepting of any price when it comes to payroll, to not look deeper and see what's there. But I would encourage everyone to understand exactly what they're paying for and to really get the most out of their payroll team. If you go to a payroll conference, the people that are doing it are really passionate about what they can give back to the business if they're given the right tools and can do their job right. It shouldn't be a secretive area where we just shove them away and pay 10 quid a month for some outsourced solution where we don't know what's happening. Understand what's happening.
I think that's my goal for 2025, Rod. I want to be speaking at the payroll conference. It's up there in my top 3 for next year.
There you go.
Accountants on tour.
Yeah.
What about you, Tom?
It's good to have goals, Chris. I'm glad you've got these aspirations. Yeah, I would agree with that. And I think technology is really changing both the price, the speed, the accuracy, and the team member and the client journey. So I think it's something that is changing very, very quickly. I even see in the last 7-8 years how much it's changed for us and how much better we've got as a result, and how much we can then move to supporting our clients rather than processing data in effect.
And Tom, we'll leave it on this, but you guys are really involved with these businesses, right? I mean, obviously Rod's kind of on the front end, I suppose, always talking to the staff and kind of working with them on their scheduling and managing that payroll. But you're also dealing with other stuff apart from payroll, obviously, and you're kind of managing these companies, and it's tough right out there at the moment, isn't this? And that's why I really want to kind of end on this point that this kind of stuff is serious, right? This is and I know people kind of a bit flippant sometimes, or I'm busy next month, roll it down the road. But it's something I think you've got to get done, right? Or you've got to at least get to the point where you're confident this is working for you.
We talk to some prospects, Chris, it's 50% of their revenue that's going on this. It's really, it's some of them, obviously that most of them are targeting much lower, but if it gets away from you, that's a large part of your revenue to be giving away. It's very hard.
Yeah, and you're trusting line managers, and I was one, right? You make mistakes, you forget stuff, you're busy, your focus is the customer and your people. That's it. The other stuff, as much as I'd like to say tech is the sole focus of people, they don't care about the tech. They care about doing their jobs properly, right, and serving customers. And I think someone needs to care about this bit for a period of time just to get it done and happening, and Patricia in a rhythm, so it's all good, and then go, and then head back to focus on what's really important to them. So yeah, I mean, Tom, you've told me many times that you're dealing with a lot of these guys, and you have to, it's tough out there, right? There's some real challenges.
Yeah,
it's not. I mean, it's not a secret, right?
No, it's really not a secret. And I think, Rod's just said it really well, but 50% wage costs not being too uncommon now. When I started out many years ago, it was, you could have a payroll number starting with 20, 28, 25%. Yeah.
If I got 50 in my old job, Rod, I'd be gone.
Exactly. Whereas now it's more like 35, 38 is what people talk about as normal, which puts a lot of pressure on other areas of the business. And it's crazy. So, pound here, pound there, while also giving your team members a much better experience, for me, is vital.
Yeah, it's very cool, guys, and I think it's we should talk more about it. We will anyway. We'll put this out and then we'll follow up probably with it as well. But Rod, if people want to get in touch with you and just ask you a bit more, A, about your merchandise, and B, about your product, how do they get hold of you?
Rod@workforce.com, or LinkedIn is also a great way to find me.
Yeah, and you guys are great, right? We've done a few bits with you, and I think one of the things I do, the reason we do the podcast is we like to meet the people behind the product. And we've met Rod and his team in the UK. He hasn't invited me to Brisbane yet. I'm sure that'll be soon. But really great people. And I would liken that, as I hand over to Tom, that same thing. I've met a few of Tom's team now as well. I just genuinely believe if you're going to put your trust in people, do it with good humans. Because the tech is almost, without being rude, secondary. It's the relationship you have with these people, and make sure that obviously the tech can do the job, but make sure you've got great relationships. And same to you, Tom. How do people get hold of you and your bunch of merry men?
So best to email on t.stanley@williamstanley.co, or as Rod says, LinkedIn is very good. And I would just take on your point there, Chris. tech is fantastic, but it's garbage in, garbage out. You need a human on the other side to support and make sure that it's done correctly, no matter how good things are. So.
Very cool. Thank you, guys. Enjoy the rest of your week, whatever you're up to, and say bye, and we shall see you all soon.
Thanks very much.
Thanks very much. Bye.